President Biden passed a series of executive actions, and illegal border crossings are now at their lowest levels.
Border crossings at the southern border are lower because the Harris administration is sending more immigrants through the ports of entry.
They've long persecuted Christians, like the Little Sisters of the Poor. They wanted to provide,
Senator,
or they've harassed Catholics for going to traditional masses. No, Caitlin, you're not going to stop me there because you're misrepresenting what the bill's about.
Getting at this, outside of vibes and Trump hatred, what has this woman done to earn anybody's vote? She won't take questions from the press. She didn't get a single vote from Democrat primary voters. She was installed by some sort of Zoom conference vote. Like, who is this person? Can you tell me?
Kamala Harris's administration with Joe Biden crippled families across our entire country. Well, the reason why those prices have been massively expensive is because Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote on Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan in 2021.
These moments took the media by storm. And that's just the beginning. Stay with us as we uncover why these Republicans are redefining political debates and schooling the press. Republicans like JD Vance, Tom Cotton, Charlie Kirk, and Byron Donalds have repeatedly shown that they're not just here to play politics. They're here to hold the press and the political establishment accountable. Take JD Vance, for example.
Why did you choose to speak here in Eau Claire today, the same time as Harris?
Well, we wanted to make sure there was a contrast, in part because the media has been so dishonest about Kamala Harris's record. We wanted to make sure that there was at least somebody out there providing an alternative story. She has not been a good vice president for the American people, and I don't think she deserves a promotion. I think she deserves to be fired, and that's what we're here. The media needs to tell the other side of the story. And unfortunately, I think unless you have somebody here, they're not going to do that.
He's unafraid to speak the truth about the struggles of middle America, a voice often ignored by the mainstream media. When he speaks, he cuts through the noise. JD Vance is a perfect example of someone who refuses to let the media's narrative define him. He stands up for the forgotten working class, the very people the media often overlooks. From defending traditional values to exposing the flaws in media assumptions, JD Vance has proven that he's not just another politician. He's a voice for those who feel left behind. When it comes to national security and foreign policy, few are as direct and unflinching as Senator Tom Cotton.
Do you agree that the Presidential Medal of Freedom is much better?
You're totally taking that out of context. Donald Trump was great for our military. Kamala Harris is the one who's proposed to cut the military every single year. Kamala Harris is the one who voted for military cuts when she was in the Senate. Donald Trump has utmost respect for our veterans and our troops, and you see that by his record in office.
Time and time again, Cotton has schooled the press, refusing to let them sidestep the real issues. With his military background, Cotton doesn't just talk about national security, he lives it. Whether it's confronting misinformation or defending America's strategic interests, Cotton's no-nonsense approach makes him a force to be reckoned with. Charlie Kirk.
Really, all of your work is not a debate. It's just confirmation bias. So
Wanna have a debate?
No, I'm good. I'm just
I'm a high school graduate. You're in college, man. Let's debate. I vomit for a living, you said.
No, I'm not here to debate. That's not,
No,
that's not my question.
You're just here to insult me. They don't want to debate me. They just come up here and insult. You, my friend, are why we are going to beat you guys historically, because you are afraid to have a debate.
Founder of Turning Point USA has built a reputation for taking on the press head-on, especially when it comes to conservative values on college campuses. Kirk's viral moments aren't just about him debating, they're about exposing the hypocrisy and bias in the media. His sharp wit and clear arguments have made him a conservative icon among young voters. It's not just about the debate. Kirk has become a symbol for young conservatives who want their voices heard and respected, showing that the next generation of Republicans is ready to fight back. Byron Donalds.
Let's talk about what's
real
fact.
Simple question.
What's fact
is it true or false that the FBI was trying to assassinate Trump?
What's fact is that Joe Biden violated the Espionage Act.
A conspiracy theory that you voiced.
What conspiracy theory?
That the FBI, by having on a document that they are authorized to use deadly force, was trying to harm or assassinate former President Trump.
Abby, we just had
is
this
it
conversation.
because
You asked me a question about the FBI raid. I'm telling you, we are witnessing a weaponization of the Department of Justice against a political rival.
Byron Donalds is quickly becoming a standout conservative voice. His presence in Congress and his strong ability to push back against biased media narratives have earned him a loyal following. Donalds doesn't just debate, he dismantles false narratives. Whether it's issues of race, economics, or the future of the Republican Party, Donald's ability to stay calm while delivering powerful points sets him apart. Let's take a moment to look back at some of the most viral moments where these Republicans truly took the media to task.
President Biden passed a series of executive actions, and illegal border crossings are now at their lowest levels in about 5 years. So much so that Greg Abbott is no longer busing people to other cities. But let me ask you this fundamental question.
Please.
Will families be separated under your mass deportation?
And again, I do want to answer this question about families and about deportations, but you made this point that border crossings are lower. Border crossings at the southern border are lower because the Harris administration is sending more immigrants through the ports of entry. So instead of coming through the southern border, they're now being flown at taxpayer expense to the ports of entry all over our country. The number of illegal crossings, they're not any lower. They're just shuffling how the people are coming into the country in the first place. And this is very important.
They're
now,
able to
about
process them more
deportations.
efficiently, but Greg Abbott's not
But
setting them to other
Kristen,
states.
I don't
But
want a
just-
border czar
just-
who makes it more efficient for illegal immigrants to come into this
to
country.
this
That's why we
question-
have the problem that we have.
New ABC Ipsos poll was out today. It shows that Governor Walz, Vice President Harris's running mate, has a higher favorability among Americans than you do.
Well, look, I don't put much stock in polls, especially at this early level. I think Governor Walz was nominated just a couple of weeks ago. He's received a ridiculous media honeymoon where a lot of press have hidden some of the things that he said and done. I mean, this is a guy who actively encouraged rioters to burn down Minneapolis during the summer of 2020. It's the biggest city in his country. And then, of course, his running mate, Kamala Harris, was offering to bail those rioters out of prison. I think when people know the truth about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, their anti-crime record, their pro-criminal record, the fact that he let rioters burn down the largest city in Minneapolis, I don't think his approval ratings are going to be that high, and I think that Donald Trump and I are going to win this race. But that's what the campaign is about, right? We have a little bit less than 90 days to make our case to the American people, to persuade them that our policies are going to make their lives better. And again, I think you contrast the failed leadership of Kamala Harris with the peace and prosperity of Donald Trump. I don't think there's any doubt we're going to win this race.
Governor Walz has called you and Donald Trump, and that is weird.
Sure. I think that it drives home how they're trying to distract from their own policy failures. I mean, look, this is fundamentally schoolyard bully stuff. They can accuse me of whatever they want to accuse me of. As Harry S. Truman once said, if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen. And I'm doing this because I think that me being vice president will help improve people's lives. So I accept their attacks, but I think that it is a little bit of projection, Dana. If you think about just take a couple of days ago. Tim Walz gives this big speech. He's been announced as the VP nominee. And I remember when I had just been announced as the VP nominee, I gave my big speech and I saw my wife and I gave her a big hug and a kiss because I love my wife and I think that's what a normal person does. Tim Walz gave his wife a nice, firm Midwestern handshake and then tried to sort of awkwardly correct for it. So I think that what it is two people, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who aren't comfortable in their own skin because they aren't comfortable with their policy positions for the American people. And so they're name calling instead of actually telling the American people how they're going to make their lives better. I think that's weird.
You're saying Tim Walz doesn't have affection for his wife? I don't even understand that.
I said that he acted weird, which he did, on a national stage in front of his wife and in front of millions of Americans who presumably were watching at home. And I think that it's projection, Dana. Look, I think this election should be about who's going to solve the inflation crisis, who's going to make groceries and housing more affordable, who's going to secure that southern border. Kamala Harris's record is that she supported all the policies that made that problem worse, Dana. We're trying to say we're going to take the country in a different direction. Their entire campaign has not been about here's our policy for how we're going to make your life better, or here's what's wrong with Donald Trump and JD Vance's policies. We're going to name call and hope that you don't notice that we don't have an agenda. That is the entire Democrat approach to this election.
They have done both. They have both policies, and they are trying to define you
Dana,
as well.
If you go to Kamala Harris's campaign page right now, they still don't have a policy.
Well, let's talk about policy
positions
versus
about what they're going to do. I think that's really insulting to Americans.
I just want to quote his words to you, Senator. He said, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?"
And he also said either is fine, both is fine. He loves African Americans, he loves Indian Americans, he loves all Americans. The point is that we don't know where she stands politically because she spent her entire life as a dangerous San Francisco liberal. And now in the last 10 days, she's tried to flip-flop on every single position because she's sending out anonymous campaign aides to say that she no longer holds views that she held when she ran for president in her own right. When is she going to come on Caitlin Collins' show or Jake Tapper's show or go go on 60 Minutes or have an unscripted press conference and answer to the American people where she stands on the issues that matter to them, on whether or not they can pay the bills on July 31st at the end of the month, whether or not they're going to be able to pay them next month, whether or not we're going to have another 10 million illegal aliens in our country under a Kamala Harris presidency.
We have had that conversation about her policy views, but how does her changing her views on her policy justify having the Republican nominee questioning her race? Does that increase or decrease your party's chances of winning in November?
Well, Caitlin, you haven't had that conversation with Kamala Harris because she's been hiding out.
I want to have this conversation with you,
Senator. Just
Senator.
like Joe Biden hid out before her. My point is, when are you and the rest of the media going to demand that Kamala Harris come out and answer questions in an unscripted format about where she stands for this country, as opposed to continuing to focus on what Donald Trump said today? 4 years ago, Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. Could you imagine a more insulting comment? Joe Biden is presuming to judge the political views of 1/8 of our fellow citizens based on their skin color. Did you ever ask Kamala Harris to condemn his remarks?
There are
Did you ever
33.
ask him or ask her if that was racist?
This is a question. You're a Republican senator, so I want to ask you about the Republican
Did you ask Caitlin? Did you ask Kamala Harris why she's willing to serve as vice president for a man she essentially called racist and a segregationist? Have you or anyone else in the media asked Kamala Harris those questions, Caitlin?
I want to ask you about another topic that is very much in the news this week, and that is the shooting. Republican Vice Presidential nominee JD Vance said after the shooting, quote, "I don't like that this is a fact of life," adding, "We don't have to like the reality that we live in, but it is the reality we live in." Do you accept that school shootings like this are just a way of life?
No, absolutely not. And JD Vance doesn't either. He said that he doesn't want them to be a fact of life. And this week, the Associated Press got caught distorting that quote from him so bad that they had to retract it. But here's what we also know about that shooting. It wasn't as bad as it might have been because there was a police officer on the school premises that was able to neutralize the shooter. Kamala Harris wants to take police officers out of school. She said it in the past. That's her position. It's not surprising because she's consistently taken positions against law enforcement throughout her career as a San Francisco liberal. If that police officer hadn't been there, if Kamala Harris had gotten her way, many more students and teachers might have been killed. We also think that we should allow, say, Christian hospitals to operate their affairs as they see fit, according to the dictates of their conscience. Now, it's not surprising that Democrats don't agree with that. They've long persecuted Christians, like the Little Sisters of the Poor. They wanted to provide contraception coverage for nuns.
Okay,
or
Senator,
they've harassed Catholics for going to traditional masses. That's what this bill's about, Caitlin. No, Caitlin, you're not going to stop me there because you're misrepresenting what the bill is about. The bill is about infringing upon religious liberty.
Getting at this, outside of vibes and Trump hatred, what has this woman done to earn anybody's vote? She won't take questions from the press. She didn't get a single vote from Democrat primary voters. She was installed by some sort of Zoom conference vote. Like, who is this person? Can you tell me?
Kamala Harris, who is she?
Like, why should, did she earn any votes? Like, how did she get here?
I mean, the vice president, or she was the vice president, he dropped out, and she was on the ticket. That's my best guess of why she is.
Looking at this, does that give you confidence that this person should be president?
I'm fine with her experience. I think she has a lot of experience for the office. Yeah, I don't think you can argue that she doesn't.
I mean, we already went to the border, but just like, you got to give me something, or the audience, like, make the case. Like, we're here in a battleground state, Wisconsin. Like, show me the case. I'll give you the case. Trump was president for 4 years. People were richer, world was safer, border was secure. Things were going really, really well. We respect our world. Kamala Harris, like, what's the thing? What's the sales pitch? Outside of vibes and Brat Summer, like, what is the pitch?
Hi, Charlie. So my question is, you support Christian values, as do I. How do you support a man who, in many ways, is the antithesis of those values in Donald Trump?
Well, I thought you were going to say Joe Biden. Well, yeah, so you're asking why do I support a sinner?
Why do you support someone who...
Because you're obviously not a sinner, right?
No, I'm a sinner, but his whole life and his values are all the antithesis of what the Ten Commandments are and things like that.
Okay, so I'm not even sure what to make of that. Let's just look at his presidency. I mean, was he not an excellent president? Do you disagree?
Well, I believe that character matters in our leaders.
I do too. So here's my number one mark of character for a politician. Did you do what you say you were going to do? And Donald Trump did what he said he was going to do.
Sorry.
But secondly, I'm not going to get into like the deep thicket here of defending Donald Trump's personal life, because we're in a binary right now. And the binary is very simple. Instead of moralizing against a man who's facing 700 years in federal prison for trying to put the American citizen first, I think we as Christians should get on our hands and knees and thank God that we have a fighter that is willing to actually go to DC and fight for us against that very regime. So hold on a second. You say, how can I as a Christian? I look at Samson, I look at David, I look at sinners throughout the Bible that were used for God's purposes. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, but how do you believe that it's okay to kill an animal when it's not okay to kill a child? You defend a child more. Some children die. Some children never make it out of the womb.
Well, because human beings are human. A is A, and human beings are worthy of protection, and animals are not humans, and they're not the moral equivalency, correct?
No, but I don't believe that. I'm not trying to argue that a human is worth more than an animal. I'm saying that even if a human is worth more than an animal, you should give animals respect.
I do give animals respect. We should treat them humanely. If you are to eat them, you should kill them in a way that does not have unjust suffering.
What about milk? But animals are raped all the time. Cows are raped to produce milk. Yeah, to produce milk, a cow has to be impregnated, and it's not like these farmers are waiting for the animal to get pregnant naturally. They have to be forcibly inseminated, which is a form of rape.
I actually think it's a great thing that we have dairy.
Okay, but I don't think that that drinking milk in and of itself is bad. But saying that animals can be raped is okay, that's beyond me.
I gotta be honest.
Yes.
I've been doing this for 12 years. I've never heard that before.
Yes, but they are raped.
Here is what I'm telling you. If there are issues at the Department of Defense that are decreasing recruitment, because the numbers are crystal clear at this point, and we have many members of our military who have complained about some of the programs that are going on at DOD, we have a responsibility to get to the bottom of that. My friend Jody Arrington, who's going to chair budget, he wants to look into the budget and also look into entitlements. Do you know that Social Security is going to be insolvent in 2035?
It is not going to be. That is not true. That is actually not true. No, it's actually not true.
Now, Joy,
it's actually not true.
It's
actually not. But it's actually not true.
The financial community.
That's actually not true. That's actually not true.
Will go insolvent.
That's actually not true.
Those are the facts.
That's not true.
Should we not prepare for that? If you actually
that's not what they paid into. No.
If you look at the returns of the S&P 500,
that's not true. That is not true.
2006, the returns of the S&P 500 since 2006.
You're saying so you support privatizing Social Security?
No, I want to explain to you. I am a financial professional. I'm securities licensed. Actually, I just lost my licenses because I'm not allowed to trade anymore because I'm a member of Congress. But let me assure you, if you look at the S&P 500 from 2006 until today, the growth rate in the S&P 500 would have more than taken care of Social Security, way more than the federal government has.
And each time that you had a crash, it would subject people's Social Security funds to crash. Hold on a second. So let me just hold on a second. We're not going to have a whole long thing on
CPI just out this morning. This is the first time that overall inflation measured on year-over-year basis has come in below 3% since March of 2021, a trend that you could say could be good for the Harris campaign, maybe fueling the Fed to begin to cut interest rates in the fall. What's your reaction to it?
Kamala Harris's administration with Joe Biden crippled families across our entire country. There was a video of a black woman being interviewed, I think by MSNBC, talking about how prices have gone up massively. A bell pepper that was $2 is now $5, and she was able to get through it. But what about a single mom with 2 kids, 3 kids doing everything to make ends meet? Well, the reason why those prices have been massively expensive is because Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote on Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan in 2021. She was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act. All that did was create massive government spending, which created massive inflation on the backs of the American people. Overall, prices are up well over 20%, especially when you start getting into food and other areas like that. So Kamala Harris's record has been one of leaving working families behind. When Donald Trump was president, we didn't have a massive inflation. Our economy was growing massively at the same time. Working families were getting ahead. Middle-income families getting ahead. Everybody was thriving. I think so. The key issue is what was just brought up about which candidate is the candidate of political and economic change. It's without question that candidate's Donald J. Trump, because Kamala Harris was sitting there shotgun with Joe Biden, creating one of the worst economic situations for working families in the last 40 years in the United States of America.
What do you get you to respond to something former President Trump said about the debt ceiling in 2019? Why don't you agree with him on this?
Well, first of all, he also said the other day on a rival network that he said that when he was president, and when asked why he wasn't saying it now, he said because he's not president. Listen, Donald Trump is always negotiating.
Do you realize how absurd that sounds?
That is not absurd. He's always negotiating, Chuck. Chuck, he's always negotiating. That's what he does. Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons why so many deals for our country worked out to our benefit as compared to his predecessors, both Republican and Democrat, because he's always negotiating.
Do you realize how partisan that sounds?
That's not a partisan statement.
What is good for me is not for thee.
Listen,
he's basically saying when I'm president, there's no negotiating on this. But hey, when somebody else is president, screw him.
Well, no, here's the thing. Let's be realistic now. When Donald Trump was negotiating debt ceiling with Nancy Pelosi, mind you, they negotiated that.
No, they didn't. They raised it without any restrictions.
When they were doing that, our economy was thriving. Our debt levels were not where they are right now. We were about $24 trillion, not $32 trillion. We weren't having massive deficits the way we are right now. It was a very different environment. Now you have $32 trillion on the credit card, and all House Republicans are saying is, let's go back to pre-pandemic spending. That's common sense.
These are the moments that captivated audiences and sent shockwaves through political discourse. So why do these moments matter? Because they represent a shift where conservatives no longer allow the press to control the narrative. Instead, they are standing their ground, exposing the biases and pushing for real answers. These politicians are not just here to debate, they're here to win hearts and minds. Their words resonate with everyday Americans who feel misrepresented, and their actions speak to the core values of conservatism. The question now is, where do we go from here? With rising voices like JD Vance, Tom Cotton, Charlie Kirk, and Byron Donalds leading the charge. The Republican Party is proving that it's not afraid to challenge the establishment. It's moments like these that show us the strength of conservative leadership. These are the people shaping the future, and if these moments are any indication, they're just getting started. As we've seen today, Republicans are bringing a new level of strength and clarity to political debates. The press may try to control the narrative, but these leaders won't let them. If you believe in the power of these conservative voices, make sure to share this video, and let's continue supporting the movement that's fighting for the real America. Stay tuned for more. The best is yet to come.